like it didn't even happen. I was an absolute monster. I was a monster. And the PTSD was severe, but it was just the beginning. And for the people who are joining,
you have people over here that have experienced close to the same. Nothing Faces is here, and he is part of our group. He's a former police officer. So, you know, would you say, because I've listened to both of you guys talk about your stories, would you say that people that you knew within the military after you joined that exceeded expectations and were extremely focused, do you think that they all came from some sort of PTSD before they joined?
I would say a lot of them did. No matter what, they came from what would be a very structured and strict upbringing. If they were used to taking orders, used to being told what to do, used to having no exception, do what you were told to do it right, do it correctly, and if not, you will be punished accordingly, then you fit well right into what the mode was, and you were ahead of people. You know, some people just weren't used to the criticism. Some people just weren't used to being punished. They weren't used to being held to a standard that didn't deviate. And for me, it was normal. It was very, very normal. But the military
I'm sorry, you guys. My dog is being a pill today.
The military was just a portion of my life. There's PTSD. The thing I want to bring up off the here is there's PTSD and then there's C-PTSD. Complex PTSD.
Can you feed him?
If you look up the term complex PTSD, I think you'll find that bunch of the first responders, your medics, your police, your fire, your pararescue, people that deal with disaster relief, they're better understanding, because I've never had a nightmare or flashback in my life. Not one, not ever. Yet I went to a 28-day inpatient program in Petersburg, Virginia, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, and one of only 7 PTSD-specific tracks in the entire nation at the time. Dr. Gregory Hines, my treating psychiatrist, now the director of that program, when I was diagnosed, he said I had and they said, the very first thing it said on a piece of paper was severe PTSD. I chuckled. I thought that was funny. And he goes, I said, I didn't even think I had PTSD, let alone severe PTSD. He said, Bruce, you have one of the worst cases, if not the worst case I have ever seen. I about fell out of the chair. I was like, what do you mean? I don't have nightmares, I don't have flashbacks. How can I have this severe bout of PTSD you're talking about? And it was explained to me that my PTSD developed from childhood all the way through to that evaluation period. And it's continued since. One traumatic event after another. No specific one. When people talk about PTSD, for most people, it came from a particular thing that happened in their lives, whatever that was. A severe car accident, some kind of abuse, some kind of tragedy that they faced, a traumatic event that they suffered from, and that's where their PTSD stemmed from. Mine's a combination of a lifetime of traumatic events, an entire lifetime. Of course, 7 combat deployments, from Panama in '89, Iraq in '92, Iraq again in '03, Afghanistan in '04, Kosovo and the Mediterranean in 2000. Sure, I could tell war story after war story after war story that people could sit there and go, wow, that's very traumatic. And maybe they just don't register in my gut like that. I could shock people with some things I've seen. At the same token, for me personally, I can't put my finger on any one thing and say that caused my post-traumatic stress syndrome. That's the difference between complex PTSD and actual PTSD. And if you haven't noticed, I operate 1,000 miles an hour. My brain never stops, it never slows down.
That is the truth. If anybody didn't notice that, Bruce is very much like that. All right, so I'm going to slow you down just for a second because I want everybody to get the most benefit out of what you're saying. And what a story, right? And I know that a lot of people are now in the audience talking about their stories, and how traumatic that they've been through a lot of PTSD as well. especially our first responders and military that are attending. So thank you so much for supporting. Please share the broadcast so that we can help as many people as possible. That's what TheraSonix Comp with a Cause is about. So, Bruce, all right, so let's go back and say that you wrote about 2 historically significant deployments that you did. You know, I know you did 7 deployments, which is outrageous in a amount of what you've seen. But you did 2 historically significant deployments, one being Panama with Noriega and the realities of wartime. I believe it was your first wartime, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then the other being the capture of Saddam Hussein and his sons in Iraq, which seemed to be more of a mixed bag of mental effects of sometimes, quote, this is from your book, of sometimes justice being fire and fury, but also the strains of dealing with collateral damage on your mental state. Can you share how these vastly different realities played a part in your developing PTSD? And is it fair to assume that anyone experiencing war likely has some form of it?
Absolutely, that's a fact. And then for the first responders in here, the firemen, the EMTs, the emergency room staff, the people that respond to earthquakes, floods, those type things, it's the repeated exposure over and over. A fireman goes through more accidents in a month than most people can imagine. They see it all the time. Police, same thing. EMTs, those type of people are seeing traumatic events all the time. In the military, maybe the trauma was a little bit more extreme. There was a lot more death and a lot more numbers. When you get to Panama, I was a machine gunner the first night of the invasion. I was in Cologne, and we attacked. Their Marines were the ones that we assaulted, their barracks. We hit them at 1 o'clock in the morning, and out the back of their building, they were running towards the docks where they had a couple of PT boats. For anybody older in here, if you remember McHale's Navy, there were PT boats docked there, 2 of them. That was the extent of their Navy there on that side of the canal. They were running to the ships to get out of there because the building was being crumbled and they were just getting destroyed. And I was gunning them down as they ran across to the ships. I was running a machine gun as full bore as I could run it, right at knee level, and cutting them down. It was my first experience in combat, and I look back and I see it like it happened just now. I could draw a picture of it, but did it bother me? I don't feel like it bothered me. I'm sure it had a major effect. I didn't enjoy it, but in my brain, I was doing a job. However, if you fast forward, after that I was in the jungles of Panama and I'm chasing down the FARC people. They're the resistance fighters out of Colombia. The Panama and Colombian border was one and the same. You're in a jungle, you can't tell a border. There's no line, it's a jungle. And we're chasing those suckers down, and what they did is they went into the villages in the jungle and they took control of those villages. They got their supplies and everything they needed from the people there. If those people were supportive of them before that, they treated them pretty good. But if they were not supportive of them before that, it was brutal. They killed every man right off the rip. They raped the women, most of them to death. And the children, the one camp we went into, to give you an example, if anybody knows how to make wine, the old school making wine where they tamp leaves. They put a bunch of wine leaves in a thing and they tap on the leaves. So some people can go to wineries and stuff like that, and you could tap on leaves and part of your wine tour. Well, they were tapping on leaves. They were cocaine leaves. They were used to make cocaine because they were funding their resistance with the funds from selling cocaine.
Absolutely.
They used the kids in the pits to tap on the leaves with battery acid. Barefooted children, battery acid in the pits. So, as a matter of no time, they would begin to get sores on them. The cocaine, from the battery acid, the cocaine would get into their bloodstream. Obviously, they'd be tampering leaves quite well at that point until they bled out. And then they would toss them to the side and put more kids in. When we entered that camp, there was a pile of kids next to that pit. I couldn't kill enough of them to make me happy from that point forward. But the children, the damage to the lives of children, whether it was that war or the Iraq war where they were using them as shields or bombs, or you had to decide whether you're going to kill the kid or not kill the kid when he walked towards you with a backpack. Is there a bomb in there? Is there not a bomb in there? It's a mind game that you have to understand, they don't lose when they do that mind game. If I send a child over the berm in an open fire zone with a backpack and the child's 6 or 7, and there's a million signs, they know not to come, but here comes the kid in the backpack. If I shoot the kid and it explodes, I've killed the child. But I've saved our lives, we didn't let the child get to us. If I shoot the child and it doesn't explode, and there's no bomb, there's the other mind screw. Now I have to live with, I just killed a kid that came walking towards me with an empty backpack. And whether or not you can handle that, whether or not you individually can rationalize that, compartmentalize it, do whatever you got to do to not let that affect the rest of your life, that depends on the person suffering. I thought I did an excellent job doing it. I still think I do a pretty good job hiding those things. But the residual effects, my brain running 1,000 miles an hour all the time, that was not how I was until the end of my service. Iraq and Afghanistan was back to back.
So let me ask you this, and honestly, I can't even imagine, okay? I can't imagine how I would be able to compartmentalize. I can say that probably you seeing children in that position had to be a trigger of some sort because of the abuse you had suffered. It would have to be.
One in particular incident, we're in Baghdad, we have it all set up just like that. And here came a child over the berm. And it was in the evening, but there was a million signs, they knew not to come. The barbed wire, big berm, open area, but the child was sent to do what they had to do. My gunner in that particular position, a friend of mine that's now in Seattle, he's calling over the radio, if this kid's coming, I'm calling from the headquarters going, take the shot, take the shot. Take the shot, Joel, take the shot. And I don't hear a shot ring out. It's a 50 cal gun up there, I don't hear no shot. And I'm like, oh my God, he's not taking a shot. And I keep telling him, but he's not. At that point, I drop what I'm doing and I run to his position. When I get to his position, he's in the turret and he can't take the shot. He just can't. He can't shoot the kid. So I yank him down and I jump up and I take the shot and I kill the kid. There was no bomb. There was no bomb. It was just I gunned down a kid walking towards us who was sent to us to do that. You have to be able to rationalize that in a way that works for you. Joel, to this day when I see Joel, and we reminisce about the military, we used to have a reunion up in Seattle. We'd go salmon fishing with a bunch of us, my gunner, my driver, a bunch of people in that platoon. At one point, it wasn't really salmon fishing, it was more drinking and gambling, but so under the pretense of salmon fishing, we'd be sitting there at night and things would come up, and Joel would just stop and go, to this day, Bruce, I don't know how you were able to take that shot. I'm so thankful that you took that shot, not me. I'm so thankful that you did it, not me. Because I understood you had to do it. Sure as heck I didn't want that kid to get to our perimeter and blow up and take other people's lives. But he goes, I don't know if I could have lived with that.